Thank you, Steve. That's a team honor. As I told some of the players that texted me, it's all because of them. So appreciate that. When you have a game like you had Saturday night, there's a lot of individuals like our players that are getting accolades, and all goes back to the team and what we were able to accomplish. Happy Election Day to everyone. Everyone, please get out and vote. And then before we get started, too, just wanted to send my thoughts and prayers to Le'Veon Moss, running back out at Texas A&M. I saw where his injury that happened the other night was season-ending, and hate that for him. Don't know him, but loved watching him play leading in to our game. Was one of, if not the best running back in the SEC, without a doubt. And wish him a speedy recovery, and just wanting to know that everybody here in our football program is thinking of him as well. Excited to get back out on the road again this week. Another SEC ranked opponent on the road. Got a ton of respect for Coach Lee. He and I were both hired as head coaches in the league at the same time. Someone that I had gotten to know a little bit, just phone conversations during COVID. And then we both got hired in the SEC less than a year later as well. So have followed his program closely. Got a lot of respect. I guess we're around the same age, and children are around the same age, and think a lot of him, always have, but so impressed with what he's doing this year, with the way they're playing. They're doing the things like I talked about with Texas A&M last week. They're doing the things that teams have to do in order to win football games. I know they're leading the league in time of possession, so they're keeping the ball. They're second in the SEC in turnover margin. They are leading the SEC and not turning it over. They're the least penalized team in the SEC, so they're doing a great job of just not losing football games, playing winning football, finding ways to get games to the fourth quarter, and then finding a way to win it in the fourth quarter. They've got 3 losses by, I think, a total of 10 points, if I'm not mistaken. So they're doing a lot of really, really good things. It all starts with the quarterback. He's just a dynamic player, dynamic athlete, dynamic leader. Their team goes as he goes, and a ton of respect for the way he goes about things on and off the field, and what he's about as a person and player, it appears. A lot of their better players from last season, in our mind, when we played them last year, a lot of those guys are back as well, particularly on the defensive side of the ball and on the offensive line. And then they've added some impact transfers as well. Obviously the quarterback, but other positions on offense, other positions on defense. They've got some guys on the defensive line with size and pass rush ability. They've got a really big secondary. That's going to be a challenge for our guys this week, just the size of their secondary at nickel and at safety. You basically got like 3 linebackers that are playing those 3 positions for them and playing it at a high level. And we know that Coach Lee's a defensive guy, and really dangerous. They're dangerous in the return game as well. Punter's a heck of a punter, so they're a really good football team in all 3 phases, and we'll have to play well up in Nashville. I know this is a trip that our fans always look forward to, going to Nashville, and would anticipate this year being no different. They've made a lot of changes and renovations to their stadium, so it'll be cool for our fans to get up there and see what they've done there at their stadium. And I know they all love going up there and enjoying Nashville on Friday night, and hopefully on Saturday night if we're able to play well. So we talked to our team about it this morning, how many Gamecocks are going to be up in Nashville this weekend, and we'll challenge them to show up and do their part as well. Questions? There's things called red eyes that these guys can get on out in Vegas. Did you do one? Yeah. Good for you. See, I respect the dedication now. And I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't do a roll call of who was at the game last night in Vegas. Bobby got defensive on me. Much respect. Kudos to you, and get that man a raise as well. Some of these other ones we talked to our players about seeking comfort. Don't seek it. I think some of these other ones are seeking comfort with the least resistance to get back as well. You as well? Oh, always. Yes. Got it.
Shane, going back to 2 years ago when you guys beat Tennessee, you guys were, obviously coming off a big win, then you go on the road. You guys are kind of in a similar situation this week after the big win, going to Vanderbilt. What did you guys do during that week to kind of keep the main thing that you can kind of apply to this week?
From Tennessee to Clemson, you're saying? I would think it's very similar from that standpoint, in that we got beat by Florida down in Gainesville. And I talked to the team in the locker room after the game that was obviously not us, what we just put on display out there in Gainesville that night. But we had the opportunity over the next 2 weeks to change the trajectory of the program. And when we beat Tennessee, we just reiterated that we didn't say we just had 1 week to do it. We had the next 2 weeks, and we need to continue to build on that, and that nobody thinks you're going to be able to do it 2 weeks in a row. That Tennessee was a flash in the pan. There's no way you could do it the next week against Clemson. So leaning into that is what we did 2 years ago, and I think this year is very similar. We talk about last week, we said they remember November, and they do. It wasn't just they remember November 2nd, it's what you do the whole month as well. And I showed the team the clip this morning of Josh in the press conference with you guys the other night where he said 1, 2, 3, is that 1, 2, 3, 4, is that foe? We got last one, we got to get the next one. So that's what he said. Exactly, a great message that they'll remember what we do throughout this month, not just the first game of the month as well. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that think, man, they played great against Texas A&M. There's no way they can do it 2 weeks in a row against another good team. And it's a challenge for us to see if we can. So I would say that as well. Have you slept, Alan?
A little bit.
On the plane?
Yeah.
Direct into Charlotte, or what did you do?
Charlotte and drove down.
Oh, boy, I like that, man. Yep.
We all asked him the same thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, he looks like crap, but I'm glad he's here right now as well.
This is a,
In the most endearing way possible,
I
Alan.
was
I
going
don't
to say,
mean.
this is a press conference that comes after a big win, isn't it? You know? Shane, I'm just wondering, off topic a little bit, what you thought when you saw that memo come through from the commissioner about injuries and making sure that they're real injuries and stuff. We all know what happened here, a month or so ago. Is it a big problem? Is it getting to be a bigger problem? And were you happy to see that come out?
Absolutely. My reaction was good for you, Mr. Commissioner, that he did that. Those are conversations that we've had within the league, or us and the league, or the league and other teams, that have been going on all year. But obviously there was already a policy for not doing it. And I mean, I can remember walking in the defensive staff room before the first game and reading to Clayton, to those guys, here's the policy in this league, and I ain't paying the fines. So if one of our guys goes down, y'all can figure out where the money comes from. So making sure they understood that there is a policy in our league, because we were getting ready to play Old Dominion, who was a tempo team as well. And then obviously it's been an issue throughout the season. We've seen some of the teams either on television or in person. That was a tough look, and not what anybody wants to see. You don't want to, like I said after that game earlier in the season, no one wants to see that. No one, you pray that everyone's healthy and okay, but no one wants to see double-digit injuries and in one game that maybe aren't really injuries, and now all of a sudden you got 4+ hour football games, and it's just it's not good for the game. And I was glad to see that statement come out, and I don't think it's necessarily gotten worse. I think there was a period where it was very prevalent in the league there early in the season. I haven't, just in games that I've watched and things like that, I don't think it's been terrible recently. But, every week's different. But as always, appreciate the commissioner's leadership. And he was here the other night and had a chance to visit with him before the game. Appreciate what he's about and what he's trying to get done.
I remember after the Old Dominion game, asking you on offense where things that the most important thing to maybe fix, and I vividly remember you saying perimeter blocking with receivers and tight ends, and it feels like over the course of the season that's gotten significantly better. So just from your standpoint, what's that buy-in been like with some of your wide receivers, your tight ends, to be able to block better and be able to get this run game to be able to produce something like you did this past Saturday?
Yeah, you should have been in the team meeting this morning, because that was one of the focal points in the team meeting this morning. So ask me that question again next Tuesday, and hopefully we did that in Nashville, because it's going to be a challenge this week in all seriousness. You watch, when I talk about those defensive backs with size, that's a challenge for our receivers, because we're not very big at the receiver position, and they've got a nickel that's 6'2", 220 pounds out there in space that our receivers are going to have to be able to block. And they've got safeties that are 6'4", 200 pounds. So when you talk about perimeter blocking, it's going to be a big challenge this week. Same thing for our defense as well, because of the quarterback and the things that he's able to do with the ball in his hands. On some of that zone read stuff, option that he pulls it and he's out there in space. We showed the team, the whole team this morning, some clips of, Vandy's receivers and tight ends physically getting after some other SEC defensive backs on the perimeter that extend runs for the quarterback or running back or whoever it might be. So it'll be a big challenge this week. As far as the buy-in, we just talk about it all the time. I mean, it's a period that we do in practice every Tuesday, where it's the starting defensive backs and linebackers versus the starting tight ends and receivers and running backs. And we just do the linemen aren't there. It's just perimeter, just rapid fire, right side, left side, right side, left side. Y'all been out there and seen us do that in August. And we do that every Tuesday and make a big point about it and coach off of it. And that's where so many of those explosives come from. A lot of the success that we were able to have in the run game the other night was because of perimeter blocking. And whether it's Nick Harbor coming down and blocking a defensive end or cracking a linebacker, or somebody, I think it was Gage on one of Rocket's runs over there on A&M sideline, where Gage comes in and cracks the safety. It's a point of emphasis and something that we talk about all the time. And they're fortunate that they have a receivers coach that was a tough dude as a football player as well, and did that himself when he was playing in the NFL, and something that we pride ourselves on around here for sure.
I remember a couple weeks ago when the fumbles thing was big with Lenoris. Dowell was talking about there's a balance between making sure his confidence is high and not trying to harp on the fumbles. Did that pay off on Saturday? And what was stressed during the bye week to ensure that Lenoris was the athletic guy that he is?
Yeah, Dowell's right, and what you're saying is right. You don't want to turn them into a robot where you're scared to make mistakes. I mean, there was a play that I showed last week of Arkansas versus A&M, and it was Arkansas's quarterback in the game earlier this year where he got out of the pocket, he rolled to the right. It was during a 2-minute drill, and he was trying to make a play late in the game, but he made a throw where he kind of threw it back across his body, back inside, and it was intercepted by Texas A&M. And I made the point in the team meeting that we can't make decisions like this. We got to play winning football. But then I also got to thinking about it. Like I don't want to paralyze him from that standpoint either. So I pulled Lenoris aside individually later, and I told him, look, I showed that clip, and the point that I was making is we can't throw the ball back across our body inside, but I want you to go out there Saturday night and cut it loose and have fun and be the playmaker that you are. And you saw that. You don't want to coach that out of him. But there's also, in my mind, the no matter what you're doing and you're trying to make plays, you can play with proper ball security in the pocket and know that Texas A&M, I've talked to you guys about those 4D linemen and how good they are, and they do a great job of swatting at balls, and Lenoris coaching him up to carry the ball the right way. And there's certainly some times where he was carrying the ball the other night, not great, and I'm sure Vanderbilt's looking at it and saying, hey, if he's going to carry the ball loose like this, we need to get that ball out. So you're always emphasizing, not just with Lenoris, but all of our ball carriers, defensive guys included, how we want to carry the ball. But then also Lenoris, just with more experience, I think he gets better with this, just understanding what's going on around him in the pocket, making sure that he's got the ball where we want it to be in the pocket, where we don't have those costly fumbles like that as well. I mean, some of them are going to happen. I'm bang play and somebody puts his helmet right on the ball. Sometimes it's going to pop out, but we don't want to have the ones that are more self-inflicted than the other team doing a great job getting it out.
When did you first become aware of Diego Pavia? Did you know much about him before he came into the league? And what do you think's made him so good in the league?
Yeah, first became aware of him, I guess, would have been last year when they beat Auburn, right? When they came in, that was late in the year, I believe. And I always look at scores and of games across the country every Saturday, and you saw that his team was having a good year, and then they came in there to Auburn and won, and it's like, wow. And then you see some of the highlights of that game, and I never thought that guy would end up in the SEC. It was different than that. Probably this summer, we always do a summer scouting report as a coaching staff where you talk about we're going to really do a deep dive into either your first 4 opponents is what we do, any new opponent on the schedule, Wofford, LSU, whoever, Ole Miss, and then any team that has a new coordinator, just so we can get that background. So obviously Vanderbilt had a new coordinator, so we wanted to study their offense a little bit more in depth. So back in June, when we started doing those summer scouting reports and you start seeing what he did before this season and the kind of player he was and what they might be doing offensively, just understanding that. And then it was really a wake-up call when they beat Virginia Tech game 1, because before the season, Virginia Tech, I believe, was a team that a lot of people were picking to win the ACC. And then they went into Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt did what they did to them game 1. And certainly got on our radar. And then I would say, like everyone, when they beat Alabama, and you're like, okay, better pay attention to this guy. There's something to him, and you could see that in the post-game interview he did that day with Alyssa Lang after the game, and just his passion and competitive spirit. And it's very evident when you watch him on tape how they feed off his energy and his competitive spirit and what he's about. I enjoy watching him, that's for sure.
Hey, Shane, coming off a game like last weekend when you played more of a complete game and eliminated or worked on some of the problems that have been plaguing you all season long, how does that carry over into practice? It would seem like you would be having some of your best practices of the year this week.
Yeah. I think we're certainly off to that start. It goes back to, what Jack had asked about how we just keep it going, and it wasn't just let's just have a great week and go play well against Texas A&M. It's let's finish the month of November the right way, and we did some really good things the other night. Let's keep building on that and keep this momentum going. And practice Sunday night was awesome. There was no hangover. It was more excitement that we get to be back out on the field. And then today's practice was the same thing. More, you worry about it. I'll be honest. I mean, human nature. You have such a sky-high game on Saturday night. You worry about can we recreate the same energy and intensity that we displayed last week in practice? And we started this morning with the same way on that. So it's absolutely, there's a lot to clean up from the A&M game. There's some things that we did not do great defensively, special teams wise and offense. So we got a ways to go, and it's right back to work. But there's also certainly a sense of we're doing some really good things right now. Let's keep this momentum going, and we can't wait to get back out on the field also.
A couple offensive linemen were in earlier talking about how they just feel like they've started to learn each other's tendencies and play better as a 5. With this offensive line playing better, how much of that is starting the same 5 every week, and how much of it is individual growth from young players just finally getting reps?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit both. I wish they had said that before game 9, considering we've had the same offensive line for 8 straight weeks, knock on wood. Last year it was 9 straight weeks before we had the same 5 offensive linemen. So I'd say about time. But no, they've gotten better individually. There's no question about it. And we made that point with them last week was, Josiah, you're not a freshman anymore, man. You've played in 7 games, and most of those are SEC games. You've got the experience, and Torricelli and Kamar, you were new here, but you've got experience here in this group as well. And they've all worked really, really hard and gotten better individually, but absolutely the health that you want to have, the continuity on that line, it's critical. Working alongside one another and learning each other and just the communication and the rapport and all that. Those guys obviously spend a lot of time together, so it should continue to grow and get better throughout the year. And they did some really good things the other night, but going back to things that we got to clean up, I mean, there's some communication that we didn't have where they brought some pressures, 5-man pressures right up the middle that should have been easily, picked up, and we didn't communicate that well enough. So we've got to continue to grind and get that cleaned up as well.
See if we could get a jump start on tomorrow night's injury report with Jules specifically. Is he any closer to?
He's a little closer. I doubt he's going to be ready this weekend. We'll see, but I would say we're not anticipating that at this point. We'll see how he is tomorrow. Mazio practiced today. He should be good. And everyone else that left the game the other night practice today and should be good.
And Nick Barrett is obviously at the 4 games, and I assume his role will maybe be dependent on Jules and what his status is. Is that a safe assumption? And
Yeah, it's all dependent. We thought we got a pretty good squad in there with Tonka and TJ and Boogie and Monkel and Jules and Nick Barrett. And then Rondo Porter has really given us some awesome reps in there as well, Ronnie's brother. So that's a solid group, but we always rotate 4 guys for sure, sometimes 6. It's better than what we had last year where we were basically on a 3-man rotation. But yes, to answer your question, Nick's role is dependent on Jules and a lot of those guys. But even if Jules was out, it's not necessarily Nick's going to play a ton of reps. It's very game plan specific with him for sure at this point.
Shane, it seems like Vanderbilt has been on your radar pretty early, and you guys just got your top 10 win against A&M, and then they have their Alabama win, of course. What have you been telling your guys to kind of prepare them for a team that's playing with a very similar level of confidence that you guys are?
Yeah, that this is a really good football team. This is a nationally ranked team that we have to go into their new and improved stadium. And when you guys, the media, did your national rankings this week, y'all looked at it and said Vanderbilt's one of the 25 best teams in America and South Carolina's not. So that's what the rankings say right now. So we know we have a big challenge as well going in there. And it's always about us. We don't spend a ton of time talking about the other opponent. That's whether we're playing Alabama, Texas A&M, Vandy. We talk about them, don't get me wrong, to introduce them. We do that on Tuesdays. But it's always about the standard that we want to play with and how well we can play. And we know we have a big challenge this week. And our guys know, they can turn on the tape and see how hard Vandy plays on defense. They can see how well coached they are on defense. They can see the playmaking ability that the quarterback has. The running back was there last year as a freshman. It was a really dynamic player. They've got receivers with size that can run. The tight end's a heck of an athlete that they involve in a lot of different ways. The offensive line, they've added some transfers. They've got some returning guys that have been around there forever, it seems. And then defensively, size on the defensive line, size in the secondary, athleticism at linebacker, dangerous returner in special teams. So they can turn on the tape and see that this isn't the Vanderbilt that we played last year. This is a nationally ranked team that's a lot better and playing at a high level right now, and they don't do things to beat themselves. If we're gonna win this game on Saturday, we have to go win it. We have to go take it because these guys aren't gonna give you anything. That's for sure.
Your video team put out a video on a game day Saturday of the bus stopping and you getting off and going to talk to some people. And I think they came on the bus too. So, head coaches are typically like laser focused on the game that day. Can you just sort of, what moved you to do that spontaneously? And what was that? What was a little bit of background on that?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that question for sure. I thought you were going to mention the locker room video dance as well. Every Friday when we leave here and we go out to the hotel that we stay in for home games, every Friday when we come off of 26 and get on to, Bush River, I guess, and we take that left on Bush River Road and we start heading up towards the hotel. Every Friday, we come through at the same time. We leave here at 5:35 or 5:40 every Friday at the same time. And every Friday when we roll past that street corner at 5:55 p.m., they are always there on the corner for as long as I can remember. They're always there, hot, cold, rain, sun, windy, calm, losing record, winning record, whatever it might be, they're always there. And I always just see them there, and I always wave at them when I go by because they're standing there with their flag and waving at us when we come by. So I always wave at them when the buses go by just to try and acknowledge them. And then Brendan, our bus driver, who does an amazing job, he mentioned to me one time, anytime you want to stop, we can stop. And I got to thinking about it, and then I meant to do it before when was the last home game? Ole Miss. I meant to do it before the Ole Miss game, and it completely slipped my mind. I didn't want to stop and not have told the players what we were going to do. So it was a note to myself, and then he reminded me last week as well that we wanted to stop. So I said, yeah, you're exactly right. I definitely want to stop. And I told the team after the walkthrough on Friday, here's what we're going to do. Gratitude's a core value of this program. These ladies stand outside every Friday just to see the buses drive by for 5 seconds and wave at you, and we're going to stop and show our gratitude. So they were awesome. They got on the bus. I didn't think I was going to be able to get them off the bus, Phil, as well. I said, you want to come on? And they came on and had a heck of a time. And they were on there for a few minutes as well. And it was finally okay, we got to go. We got to get to the hotel. We got dinner and meetings and all that as well. But they were great, and I know our players appreciate it. And it's one of the many things that makes college athletics so great, and it's one of the many, many things that makes coaching at South Carolina and playing at South Carolina so special. Is just the people like that make it really special.
Shane, tonight is obviously a huge night in the country. People are going to have their eyes glued to the television, and I'm, of course, talking about the college football ranking show tonight. Are you going to be watching? Is it gratifying to be in that top 25? Is it motivating to be left off? I mean, what are your thoughts on this selection show tonight?
Am I going to be watching and glued to it? No. Tuesday's another late night for us, getting ready for third down tomorrow and game planning third down and getting a head start on red zone and things like that. So I'll be here working. I mean, I may have the television on in my office once we get out of meetings just for background or whatever, but does it matter if we come out tonight and we're ranked number 1 or if we're ranked 25th or if we're not ranked at all? It doesn't matter. I won't really use it as motivation in any way. All we need to worry about is we have a 1-0 mentality right now, and and that's all we're focused on right now is going 1-0. And if you do the things during the week, the process, the grind on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that gives you the opportunity to go out on Saturday and hopefully go 1-0. And if we continue to do that and go 1-0 this week, and then like Josh said, next week and on and on and on, then that opens up, a lot of possibilities and opportunities for you. But the only thing that matters right now is for me personally, let's put together a great game plan to go have a great Wednesday practice tomorrow morning.
You mentioned on the teleconference Sunday the reward of patience. There were people last year who were wanting you to depart with Clayton, and this year have one of the best defenses in the country. Is that, when you look at the job he's done this year, is that because of the added personnel? Did he switch his scheme? Did things just come together? How do you kind of contextualize the change this season?
Yeah, for me, I think it's human nature, and it's easy every time something doesn't go the right way for everybody just to say, blow it up and start over. And there's something to be said for staying the course and continuing to tweak and make the adjustments that you need to make if you feel like you got the right people in place. And Clayton and our defensive staff specifically, I mean, we did some really good things in 2021 and 2022 and as a body of work. And then 23, look, I get it. We went through a stretch last season where we did not play great defense and we gave up way too many explosive passes. And we went, I think, 4 straight games without creating a takeaway. It's hard to win that way. But then you also look at the defense we played down the stretch last season, played pretty good against Vanderbilt, held Kentucky to 14 points. Clemson did not score an offensive touchdown against us last season. So me looking at it, knowing that we had so many players coming back off last year's defense at all 3 levels, it's me sitting there saying, Jordan, okay, is the best thing to blow up everything and bring in a new coach and a new system, or do you have the right defensive coordinator and the right defensive staff in place, and do you have the right system? And when I looked at it, I said, hell yeah, we do. Now let's continue to make the adjustments that we need to make, because nobody works harder than Clayton. I mean, he grinds, he's smart. He's a fantastic defensive coordinator, and that staff in there is great. And for me, it was looking at it, okay, let's continue to make the tweaks and adjustments. We know we gave up way too many explosive passes. How are we going to minimize those in 2024? We've got to get better at rushing the passer. We need to go get some help in the portal. We need to continue to develop these young guys. We've got a freshman coming in Dylan Stewart, that we think can help. Let's continue to look at everything that we're doing schematically and get the right pieces in here, but also make the adjustments. Are we going to continue to be more of a 3-down defense like we were at the end of last season? Are we going to be more 4-down? Do we want to continue to mix it up? So it was all the above. Knowing that last year wasn't good enough, I'm not saying that at all, but we had, in my mind, we had the right people in place. We had the core group of our guys returning. Let's continue to build on the good things we did last season and adjust the things and learn from the things we didn't do well, and then get more of the bodies in here to go do what we want to do from a defensive standpoint. And so far so good, but we know we're 2/3 of the way through the season too. We're not going around, patting ourselves on the back and handing out trophies right now. We got a lot of football left starting Saturday afternoon in Nashville.
Shane, obviously you guys are in a pretty good headspace right now, but are there any concerns that, the guys are thinking, man, if we had just closed out against LSU and Alabama, look where we might be right now?
I would hope not. I mean, I get it. It's human nature. I mean, I've seen some things that people have sent me on social media of national people insinuating that, but it stinks. I mean, it is what it is, but it's also, in my mind, it's very clear, okay, we fell short on those days. Well, why did we? And let's make sure we don't do that again and continue to play winning football and not have some of the things that cost us games in those 3 losses, without a doubt. And then also understanding that, in our players' minds, it's everything's still in front of us, and let's finish out this month and see where we are as well. We can't control, what's in the rearview mirror. Everything's in that front windshield and what we're looking at moving forward, and that's this week.
What was your initial reaction to Lenoris running over that one defender on 3rd down, and just kind of going off that? What do you feel like allowed him to be, I guess, slippery, so effective, breaking out of tackles and stuff like that?
First reaction was probably like everybody else, like words I probably can't repeat in a press conference when I saw him coming over there. And because that's we know what kind of defense Texas A&M has as well. So when I saw that, it was – wow, would be the best way to put it as well. Certainly brought a lot of energy and excitement to our sideline when he did that. That was really awesome to see. What allows him to do that? Just how just strong he is. The question about the weight room. I mean, that guy's a freak in the weight room. Just how strong he is. I mean, people see him. I mean, look at his lower body. I was texting with another SEC head coach texted me on Sunday morning about him, and he said, you got freaking Superman back there playing quarterback, just how strong and fast he is. And he is. He works really, really hard in the weight room. He's a naturally strong guy. He's 240 pounds and can run. And that's just him. I mean, it wasn't a surprise, Jack. I mean, you think back to last year's game against Vanderbilt, there's a play where he has a touchdown run and he runs through somebody, and that was a wow moment as well. And then we've had those in practice. I think I've told you guys the story of his first spring here, the spring of 2023, and we had a scrimmage right out here in the stadium on a Saturday morning because we couldn't get in the stadium because everything was still torn up from the Tennessee game a few months earlier, and they were repairing it. So we had to do all of our scrimmages out here that spring until the spring game. And we had a scrimmage where he was fresh out of high school, and we made him live where you could tackle the quarterback. And there was a play over there on the near sideline over here by the building, and he fought for extra yardage on a run, and our defense was trying to tackle him, and guys are bouncing off of him, and he's carrying guys and things like that. And that was very much a moment early in his time here at South Carolina where I remember thinking, I mean, this guy's different and is going to be a real problem for teams trying to tackle this guy. And he's just got a good sense too, and that's not easy. The ability to evade people and make them miss in the backfield and out in space. He really did a great job of that the other night. So it's just God-given ability, but then it's also just his natural strength as well, and being able to do that for sure. Thank you, Coach. All right. Thank you, guys.